Good morning, televiewers. It's another beautiful day, Tuesday in Douala, the economic capital of Cameroon. And this is your favorite bilingual program, The Brief, dedicated to the review of striking news papers, headlines in the country. The program is bilingual and is also interactive, and we always have our guests with us. You can equally visit our Facebook page, My Media Prime, and drop us your comments on what you think is making news or what the headlines are saying in the papers in Cameroon. Quentin Etape is already around as usual to read the headlines in the French language for you. Bonjour Etape.
Bonjour Monsieur Lacha, bonjour chers téléspectateurs. Eh bien, la moisson, elle est abondante ce matin. Que de sujets d'actualité, l'on parle de la politique, de la santé, de la religion et bien de l'éducation. Mesdames et messieurs, une fois de plus, soyez la bienvenue sur cette émission débrief de cette grande revue de presse sur My Media Prime TV, votre télévision préférée. Ouvrons ce matin avec Réalité Plus qui s'intéresse à l'accident mortel de Sancho, le réconfort des députés de l'Ouest aux sinistrés. Eh bien, le journal de nos confrères nous fait savoir ce matin que sous la conduite de l'honorable Théodore Dato, vice-président à l'Assemblée nationale, les députés de la région de l'Ouest étaient à l'hôpital de Bamfoussam, Tchang, et sur le site de l'accident qui a fait 55 morts. Soutien aux rescapés et pose d'une de fleurs à Sancho était au menu. Les députés ont pris également l'engagement de proposer au ministre des Transports un plan pour mieux organiser les voyages de nuit, véritable poumon pour l'émergence de l'économie nationale. Le même journal s'intéresse à la religion en parlant de la cathédrale de Bamenda, messe pontificale historique du numéro 2 du Vatican. En effet, le secrétaire d'État au Vatican, Monseigneur Parolin, en visite au Cameroun, a dit une messe historique au cours de laquelle il a fait porter le pélium envoyé par le pape à l'archevêque de Bamenda, Monseigneur André Keya. C'était en présence du représentant du chef de l'État, le ministre d'État Ferdinand Ngongo, secrétaire général à la présidence de la République, et du gouverneur Adolphe Lélé. L'Afrique. Mesdames et messieurs, on poursuit avec le Messager qui s'intéresse à la région de l'Ouest, le MRC dans la tourmente. Eh bien, le journal nous fait savoir ce matin que entre corruption, détournement, clientélisme, népotisme, radiation et collusion, l'ambiance au sein du mouvement pour la renaissance du Cameroun ravive la colère des insurgés. Les informations à retrouver dans les colonnes des pages 3 et 4 de ce journal présent en kiosque ce matin. Le même journal nous propose de lire également en page 9 la sécurité routière et nous livre le train de mesures du gouvernement pour, n'est-ce pas, contrecarrer ces accidents qui sont fréquents sur nos routes. Mesdames et messieurs, on poursuit avec l'anecdote qui s'intéresse ce matin à la lutte contre le Covid-19 et la question qui se pose, c'est comment le gouvernement veut-il imposer le vaccin? Le journal de nos confrères nous explique que malgré le succès des thérapies et protocoles traditionnels locaux dans la lutte contre la Covid-19 au Cameroun et les félicitations de l'Organisation mondiale de la santé quant à la résilience que le pays a démontrée face à la propagation de la pandémie sur son sol et sa stratégie de riposte contre les cas de cette maladie planétaire, les autorités au mépris des performances sanitaires, envisageant un passage en force pour l'introduction du vaccin au Cameroun. Des informations que vous pouvez retrouver en page 54 de ce journal présent en kiosque ce matin. Terminons ce matin avec le quotidien Émergence qui nous parle de l'éducation en mettant à sa grande une la violence sexuelle dans les écoles. Le journal nous fait savoir que ces violences se perpétuent dans les établissements. Eh bien, la question que l'on doit se poser ce matin, qui sont les acteurs de cette pratique? Est-ce que ce sont les enseignants ou bien ce sont les élèves? Et pourquoi? Toutes ces réponses sont à retrouver à la page 5 de ce journal présent en kiosque ce matin. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est tout pour les journaux en langue française. Eh bien, place maintenant à l'actualité en langue de Shakespeare.
Let's kickstart this morning with the lone English daily, The Guardian Post. The Guardian Post, a newspaper which zooms on the strike action staged yesterday in Buea by ex-Amba fighters. According to the paper, ex-Amba fighters go on rampage over unfulfilled promises made to them by the government of Cameroon. But DDR top officials say they suspect hidden agenda behind repeated agitations in Buea Center. You can get details of that story only in this edition of the Guardian Post, the newspaper, on page 9 of this edition of the paper. And equally, CSPS Director General announces Buea's 5 billion CFA francs gas plant for Bamenda. Details on page 3 of this edition of the Guardian Post newspaper. And also, government waits into CDC trade union leaders announced strike action. The strike action which was announced by some trade union leaders of the Cameroon Development Corporation, CDC, recently. And the paper say that the workers are decrying poor working conditions and several months of unpaid salaries owed them by the corporation. Let's leave the Guardian Post newspaper. We're taking you to the Horizon newspaper this morning, which revisit the visit of Vatican number 2, or the Secretary of State, or Vatican Secretary of State to Bamenda. He was in Cameroon for a 6-day walking visit, and the paper says Andre Kia conferred pallium by Pope's special envoy to Cameroon. Details only on page 2 of this edition of the Horizon newspaper. And present during the ceremony were top elites of the northwest region of Cameroon, as well as former Prime Minister Philemon Yang, now leaving out the Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic of Cameroon. We are talking about the Minister of State, Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic of Cameroon, who personally represented President Paul Biya at the ceremony where the Pope's envoy called on Ambazonia fighters to drop their weapons and embrace peace. Let's leave the Horizon. The Chronicle newspaper also focuses this morning on the visit of Vatican's Secretary of State to Cameroon, the Pope to Amba boys, a message that was sent by Pope to Amba boys: divorce guns, embrace peace and reconciliation. Those were the messages sent by Pope Francis through his special envoy as he was in Bamenda to conferred the title of pallium on Archbishop Andre Kia. That was over the weekend in the chief town of the northwest region of Cameroon, that's Bamenda. And with the Newswatch this morning, Newswatch also focuses on the Pope's visit. The paper says armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Pope Francis seeks peace and reconciliation. As the paper explains further, beyond the pallium imposed on Archbishop Andre Kia, Cardinal Parolin's visit to Bamenda is seen by many as a concrete step or sign of the Vatican's keen interest in resolving the Anglophone crisis that has been plaguing the two English-speaking regions of the country for 4 years and counting now. He also met with with the President of the Republic of Cameroon. We are talking about the Pope's envoy. He also met at the Unity Palace with President Buea, where he also cautions President Buea to reconcile with Anglophones. We are back in the studio to continue with the discussions this morning. We're going straight to the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, to meet with our guest who is already on the line to Yaoundé. Good morning, Evis, and welcome as usual.
Good morning, Mr. Nasha, and good morning to all viewers of My Prime.
Media Prime.
As you've said, it's a pleasure, as usual, it's a pleasure for me being part of your program this morning.
Let's move straight to the Guardian Post newspaper. This morning, the paper took keen interest in the strike action staged yesterday by former separatist fighters who are decrying the poor conditions at the DDR center. Amongst some of the conditions, lack of nutrition or feeding. They are saying that the government has not fulfilled its promises, the promises it made to them of better life or living condition.
Well, you talk about the strike action. Well, you know, strikes in Cameroon are already part and parcel of the living styles of the people. And it is rather unfortunate that this time around we are talking about the strike action coming from the ex-fighters whom the government claimed that they took to the centers to be able to reinsert them into the society. And if they are complaining of basic necessities like food that they don't have at the centers, then we begin to wonder if the government is actually up to the task to actually, let me say, reformat these boys and be able to send them back into the society to pick up life normally as it should be. And like you earlier said, the Guardian Post tells us that officials of the center would rather say that they suspect a hidden agenda. I wonder what hidden agenda they are talking about.
Well, hidden hands
of basic necessities like food.
Hidden hands. They say some hidden hands, that there are some people who are doing everything humanly possible to tarnish the image of the government or to rubbish the efforts being made by the government to make sure that these boys, they leave the bushes.
So the hidden hands, are the hidden hands also found at the DDR centers, or are these hidden hands elsewhere? Because the people who are striking are people living right there with them. How do these hidden hands come into to have an influence on the same boys that are under their keeping and whom they are supposed to cater for? You know, when you are incompetent and you cannot do anything rightly, you will always want to look for someone to accuse or hang your blames on. And that is the game that this government is so used to playing. I don't know whom they refer to as the hidden hands. Let them tell the people who these hidden hands are or who the hidden hands belong to. If the hidden hands are found within the same DDR centers, then it means that they are failing. If the hidden hands are out of the DDR centers and are having an influence over the boys who are with them at the center, it means they are still failing. So for once, they should admit their responsibilities and sit up to the task and do what they have promised Cameroonians and promised the boys that they are supposed to do for them, and stop trying to play the blame game.
Okay, trying to play the blame games. Tape Canteen has a question for you regarding that.
Bonjour.
Yes.
Oui, parlons même de ces enfants qui ont été réhabilités ou bien qui ont été appelés à s'introduire dans le centre de DDR. Évoquons aussi ce problème de la crise anglophone de manière profonde avec l'Église catholique qui tente de trouver une solution à ce problème. Est-ce qu'on peut dire que on va trouver une solution à travers la religion, une solution que d'autres personnes n'ont pas trouvée?
Yes, Evis, to be more precise, he's talking about the efforts of the Catholic Church to looking for a lasting solution to this crisis. He's asking you, do you honestly think that the Church can be able to reconcile the warring parties?
It is very, very possible for the church to reconcile the situation at hand as of now. The only question is if the government in itself will be willing to give the church that hand. Remember, even before the coming of the Secretary of State at the Vatican to Cameroon, we have seen all the efforts that the Catholic Church, particularly in this country, has done. Cardinal Tumi has written, Archbishop Kia and all other religious members, they have done so many things and even tried as much as possible to meet the head of state.
Yes, and the bishop told the Pope's envoy in Bamenda that President Buea refused to receive them. That they have been trying so hard to get to President Paul Buea, but he has refused. Do you think he will be ready to receive them now?
That is just what we are saying, that the church can actually play a significant role as far as solving this problem is all about. It depends on the state. But now, like you say, Mr. Buea himself, we know is a Roman Catholic. Let's hope for once that maybe since he received a high-profile guest from the Vatican directly, maybe he will this time around accept to heed to that call for dialogue. And remember that the coming and the insistence of this envoy on dialogue is just to remind Mr. Buea and his government that the initial so-called dialogue they organized was a failure. It did not yield fruit. And that's why they are letting him understand that there's a need for another dialogue. So we are hoping this time around the knife and the yam is in the hands of the state as still. Let them for once yield to this call and be able to give room for Cameroon to sit down and talk. But coming back to your question, I would simply say the church has a significant role to play, and I'm confident that they can do much as far as resolving the crisis concerned.
So how should the church go about bringing the solution to the problem?
Now, you know the church, first of all, is apolitical. And I don't think that the church has any interest in taking sides with anybody. I think the greatest thing the church will do in this situation, if they were given room, will simply be to, let me say, sweet talk both parties and see how they can bring them to a table so that they can sit together and talk with the church, trying to, should I say, supervise in the sense of trying to see if either people do not get into excesses, or at least trying to canalize the talk such that some people for both camps should be able to grant some concessions. They should be able to let fall some of their hard decisions that they have taken and accept some of the ideas that other persons could also propose, so that we come to at least a median point at which we can get a final solution.
Okay. Another question from Kanten.
Eh bien, quittons de ce sujet pour tomber dans la santé. Et je voudrais savoir comment est-ce que le gouvernement, selon vous, peut-il imposer les vaccins aux Camerounais?
Mon frère, je ne pense même pas qu'on doit arriver à tel point où on doit imposer les vaccins aux Camerounais. Vous voyez, parce que vous savez, avec cette affaire de Covid, il y a déjà d'abord les solutions proprement camerounaises. Je parle par exemple du cas de Monseigneur Cléda qui a eu à inventer quelque chose et qui marche à merveille. Et je pense que à ce point-là, on ne peut que sensibiliser les Camerounais à prendre cela et peut-être rendre ça un peu plus moins cher pour que tout Camerounais puisse être à mesure de le prendre. Et je pense même déjà que Monseigneur Cléda ne vend pas son remède, son antidote contre la Covid. Ce qui veut dire donc que l'État peut juste subventionner et faire en sorte que ça soit disponible pour tous les Camerounais. Mais quand on parle d'imposer, ça veut dire donc, ça nous amène à peut-être qu'on est en train de un agenda caché derrière toute cette affaire-ci. Et tantôt on parle d'une idée peut-être de faire importer ces vaccins-là. Je pense que c'est là où il y a un problème. On va chercher à imposer aux Camerounais parce que c'est un truc importé, donc on ne doit pas être sûr des conséquences de ces vaccins importés-là. Mais s'il faut s'en tenir rien qu'aux vaccins camerounais, dont on est sûr que ça fonctionne et ça marche bien, je ne pense pas qu'on va arriver à un point où on va devoir imposer ça aux Camerounais. Donc il n'y a même pas question d'imposer. Il faut juste subventionner ce que le Monseigneur a eu à mettre sur pied et voir dans quelle mesure on peut prendre ça disponible aux Camerounais pour les biens.
But they are arguing, probably some people are arguing that the protocol or that Samuel Kleda's discovery has to go through has not yet been made, like we saw with the Madagascar COVID-19 invention or organics as well.
But Mr. Lasha, are you also informed that even the so-called vaccine they are trying to impose on us from Europe, that they have not equally completed their processes? Why do they think that it is only Clear's own vaccine that must undergo all its 3 phases or whatsoever thing before they accept it, and at the same time struggling to bring into Africa vaccines that have not equally gone through all the processes that they are supposed to undergo? There is a hidden agenda, and what I can say here is that the government of Cameroon, like all other African governments, need to be very, very careful in the way they go about this whole thing. We should stop this issue where we think that whenever something comes from Europe, we must accept it. We don't lose anything in Nigeria vaccines. We have our own solutions that are proper to us, and that we can go by them. So I don't think that there is anything of talking about protocols that have not been totally respected or whatever thing. Even theirs have not been respected. They have not gone through all the stages that they are supposed to undergo. And we have even seen some of the vaccines from Europe where it is precise that they should be used in territories out of Europe and not within Europe and the USA. Why should they produce a vaccine? And we know that they are more of victims to the COVID than Africans are, and they are denying that the vaccine should not be used in their territories, they should be used in Africa. Why do they pretend to be so concerned about Africa? To an extent, at times, subjectively, as an individual, at times, I didn't wonder if we have the COVID here. Because if I judge by the figures that we've seen, by the images that we've seen coming from Europe, America, and other places, honestly speaking, I didn't wonder if the COVID is present in Africa. So they should stop trying to give us the impression that they are so concerned about Africa and that they are fighting to our best interest. No. If they had our interest, they should have gotten us vaccines for malaria, they should have gotten us vaccines for the HIV. Those are things that have been existing for decades, and they have never given us vaccines. Though they should not want to give us the impression that overnight they have successfully come up with something against their created COVID, and Africa should be the first beneficiary of it.
So you are encouraging Samuel Kleda's invention to be subvention for government to give subvention.
I am 100% for it. Cameroonians and the government of Cameroon should hand in glove, subvent it, and make it available to all Cameroonians, and forget about any idea of importing a foreign vaccine for us.
Thank you very much, Elvis, for coming. We've come to the end of the program. It's always a pleasure having you. Kante?
Merci. Merci, chers téléspectateurs, de nous avoir suivis. C'est la fin de cette émission, grande revue de presse de l'émission Débrief. On se donne rendez-vous demain à la même heure. D'ici à là, portez-vous bien, surtout qui détient l'information, détient le pouvoir, et qui l'en détient, entretient le monde. Allez dans les kiosques à journaux, achetez-les et lisez-les.
Thank you very much, Kanten. Thank you to the production team led by Tebon Christian this morning. And for presentation, we have been Kanten Etape and myself, Lasha Kingsley. Bye-bye. Tomorrow is another day.